From News and Information 570 AM, this is the Stenchfield Report.
In for Grant, my name is Dan Mandis on News and Information 570 KLIF. So much going on. Coming to a campaign near you, Donald Trump's sexual exploits. Yes, we've reached an all-new low. What is a pedestrian? But right now, though, we want to talk about the biggest story of the day, and that is, of course, the Affluenza story. And we have Ethan Couch and his mom apparently still holed up in Mexico. I want to welcome in, of course, Attorney Chris Lewis, Dallas-based Attorney Chris Lewis. And Chris, appreciate you being here, and you have been really investigating and keeping an eye on this particular story, the Affluenza teenager, and, of course, we all know what it's about, so we don't have to go into the detail on all of the background. But let me ask you this. They are fighting this extradition back to the United States, and is there any real legal basis for this extradition? I'm hearing it's a 3-day delay. Could they be back in the United States in 3 days?
They could be. I'm now receiving more information that it could be anywhere. I think the marshal's office is saying to be prepared for a little bit more of a lengthy process, anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. I don't know what their basis is, besides the fact that this is just another delay tactic and part of the legal process that they have at their fingertips. Now, the 3 days, I think what they originally said is that there was going to be a 3-day injunction. From what I've learned, they were about to put the Couches back on to a plane to head back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then this writ of amparo was filed, which is very similar to a writ of habeas corpus. And what that did, the courts there have essentially said, all right, we're going to hold off for 3 days. We're going to figure out if this has any merit and if this issue needs to be litigated in Mexico before Mexican authorities turn the Couches back over to U.S. authorities.
Now, do we know, are we dealing with, I guess it's the holdup is the law in Mexico and obviously not our law. So where are the Couches being held? Are they in some sort of a holding cell? Are they in a prison, a jail? What's going on? Where are they in Mexico?
You know, they are in custody, so they're going to be in some sort of Mexican type of jail facility. I don't think it's going to be a prison. It's going to be somewhere where their attorneys, I would expect, if their attorneys from the U.S. are not down there, that they will have retained counsel down in Mexico who essentially has unfettered access to them. And regarding the extradition deal, I mean, we have extradition in the United States even between states. If I had a client who was charged with a crime in Texas, but he was apprehended in New York, there is extradition. And a lot of times we don't hear about it because defendants, they will waive extradition, meaning they won't fight the process. But you can imagine when you have independent sovereign countries, they want to make sure that other countries just can't come in and say, hey, this is one of our prisoners. Y'all need to let them go and give them to us, especially when one of those people is essentially alleging that they might possibly be harmed or they're being taken without some sort of legal due process. And that's the whole basis of a writ of habeas corpus or a writ of amparo, that the government is doing something that it doesn't have the right to do.
It's interesting because the more you read on this story, the more you see that there are some folks that are saying that Ethan could get as long as a 10-year sentence by moving him and moving his case from the juvenile court to the adult court. And I'm hearing other people say, no, it's only going to be, a few months that he's going to be in jail for breaking his probation. So I'm going to ask you, Chris Lewis, Dallas-based attorney, you tell me, when he gets back into town, and eventually he'll be there, what exactly is going to happen? Could he eventually serve as long as a 10-year prison sentence?
Eventually, but if nothing changes from where we are right here, December 30th, 2015, there's no further allegations at some point in the future. What he's looking at appearing in a Tarrant County courtroom on January the 19th to answer charges about or allegations about whether or not he did, in fact, violate conditions of his probation. If it's determined that he did, and a judge makes that decision, and only the judge, this isn't anything where somebody gets a defendant has a right or gets a jury trial. This is a judge makes the decision. If it's determined, then the maximum punishment that he can receive at this point in time for violating those conditions of probation is 120 days in the Tarrant County Jail. Now, to more fully answer your question, let's say in April when he turns 19, these cases, he's got 4 cases, that they are transferred to the adult district court, one of the adult district courts, felony courts in Tarrant County. He'll be placed on probation for the duration of the 10 years, about 8 years or so. If during that next 8 years he violates terms and conditions of his probation, then the district court judge could violate his probation and give him up to 10 years on each of the 4 counts.
Okay.
Then the judge would have to make the decision to either stack those, so essentially give him 10 years, and he wouldn't serve the next sentence until that 10 years is run, so a potential of 40 years, or to run them concurrently.
How would they make sure that Ethan is not violating his probation? I know that, and I'm not saying that Ethan is a predator, sexual. I'm just saying, I know that with sexual predators, they'll put somewhat bracelets on them and those kinds of things. How do they make sure that Ethan does not violate his probation?
They have, anytime a person is placed on a felony probation in any county in Texas, they're given a list of standard probation conditions that they have to abide by. They're very standard, such as to remain in a specified place, to avoid persons and places of disreputable or harmful character. And they go on and on. Meet with a probation officer once a month, random urinalysis. I think what Ethan Couch has done is he has set himself up to be more heavily monitored. I could see him being strapped with an electronic leg monitor because of the fact that it appears that he's tried to evade authorities. It would not surprise me because of the history of alcohol abuse that they put an ignition interlock on his vehicle or a scram bracelet. A scram bracelet actually is a bracelet like a leg monitor that's affixed to the ankle, and it reads the skin and the sweat and can tell whether or not a person has ingested alcohol, and it sends an immediate report to the monitor, and the courts will know that in short order. Those are the types of things that he might have. Also, because his mom has played such a huge part, it would be a little bit unusual, but a judge thinking outside the box could see how his mom has contributed to this issue. I mean, she was part of the Affluenza defense.
Oh, yeah.
It appears that she's been part of the hindering apprehension. A judge could say, we're going to order you during the period of probation. Your mom and you have been bad for each other. We're going to order y'all to stay away from each other. Now, you don't typically see something like that, but a judge thinking outside the box and thinking what is in the best interest of Ethan Couch and what is in the best interest of preserving the safety of the public may choose to do something like that.
What charges, you just talked about Ethan's mom, Tanya. So what charges could Tanya face when she comes back into Texas? Because, as you said, she is clearly the one that helped him escape, if you will. So what is she looking at as far as what charges we're looking at, and what kind of sentence would that bring?
What she's most likely looking at, and of course we don't know all of the details, but what she is most likely looking at is a charge of hindering apprehension, and that's when a person is potentially facing legal responsibility for a crime or punishment. Anybody that harbors that person or assist in that person evading the legal process, the criminal legal process, can be charged with hindering apprehension. It's a Class A misdemeanor, akin to an assault charge and certain other misdemeanor offenses, unless the person that you're assisting is dealing with a felony offense. And in that situation, it becomes a felony whenever you hinder the apprehension of that person. So what we're looking at in what they would most likely charge her with is a third-degree felony. It's punishable by anywhere from 2 to 10 years in prison. But, of course, a person can, if they are probation eligible, receive up to 10 years probation for a crime like that.
You know what's interesting about this whole thing, and I was thinking about this, is if I had the money that Ethan Couch and the Couch family has, and this is kind of going beyond your lawyerly expertise, but you've been watching this case for quite some time, and so I'd have to ask the question, with all the money and the resources that the Couch family has, any idea why they would pick Puerto Vallarta, for example, as opposed to going somewhere and really, truly being able to disappear? They've got the money where they could have very easily been able to buy new identities, and they could have gone off to Europe. They could have gone anywhere they wanted in the world. Puerto Vallarta, I mean, to me, it seems like a pretty easy find there, and it seems like they did find them, I'm not going to say relatively quickly, but it just seems to me like if they really wanted to disappear, they could have. Any thoughts on why they chose Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah, I have no idea. I can pontificate a little bit about that, and I think that I don't think they had any plans to run. I think that this was a knee-jerk reaction on their part. It was probably Mama's idea. Mexico, especially those of us who are from Texas, we often travel to Mexico. We may have taken vacation. Certainly a family like this with means, it wouldn't be unusual for them to have traveled to some of the resort towns on the Pacific in Mexico. So that part really doesn't surprise me. I don't think that this was a long-term plan. I don't think that these were savvy criminals who said, all right, we're going to avoid the authorities forever. We're going to create a new life because we have some money. If they would have done that, if they would have been that savvy, it's much harder to evade the police with a group of people or with two people than it is with one person. They wouldn't have traveled together. If they were really that savvy and that's what they were trying to do, Mom would have gone in one direction or she would have just stayed put.
Right.
And she would have pulled the strings from home and sent Son off. So I think this was a thing where the video surfaced from Twitter, and we're in the social media age, and you asked about violating terms of probation. That came up because of somebody sending in a video from Twitter. So, I think that this happened quick. I think that they saw the writing on the wall. I think they pulled the trigger too quickly in trying to get out of town. And what they've done in the process is they have made a bad situation infinitely worse. And
I guess my question is this, Chris, because you just hit on it, and something I want to make sure that I get in as we run close to a break, is you just said they made a bad situation worse. Had they not run to Mexico, had they just said, you know what, our bad, he still has a problem, talk about what kind of a punishment he would have had he just stayed in town and just accepted his punishment versus running. How much worse has he made this for himself?
Well, he's made it incredibly worse. I can tell you, Dan, what likely would have happened is that video that I saw showed him at a location where they were playing beer pong. I didn't see him drinking whatsoever. I didn't see him violating conditions of his probation. In all likelihood, he would have shown up to court. He probably would have had a warrant issued. He would have had to gone in front of the judge, and most likely without any other evidence, he would have been admonished and put back on probation. But what happened when he takes off, and I'm seeing that they left maybe at the end of November, he had a probation meeting on December the 10th. Right. He was not there. He was in Mexico. And now we've seen all these things with the identity changing. He's made everything worse. Now they have a rock-solid violation of probation, and there's no doubt, in my mind at least, that he's going to get some jail time as a result of that.
Chris Lewis, Dallas-based attorney, thank you very much for being here. Outstanding insight, and I appreciate you being with us here on News and Information 570 KLIF.